This adventure begins in southeast Texas. My daughter Maddie is married, and along with her husband, First Lieutenant Thule, they live at Travis Air Force Base in Northern California. They were expecting the birth of their first child and my second granddaughter. I, of course, planned on being there when the baby arrived, but I figured I'd go out a few days early and do a little exploring on the motorcycle. Called Alan Cook Transport. He picked up my Yamaha Tenere in Kuntz, Texas, and hauled it to Las Vegas. My plan was to fly to Vegas from Houston, Uber from the airport to my bike, which was now in a public storage unit, then head on towards California and see the countryside while making my way up to Northern California. At the last minute, my friend Billy decided he needed to go to keep an eye on me, so he ended up loading his 890 KTM on the back of his Sprinter van. I canceled my plane ticket and we headed west for Vegas from Kuntz, Texas. I did mention this earlier, but the grandfather name that was chosen for me is Buzz. This has something to do with the fact that I also raise bees. The baby girl we were all so anxiously waiting for and looking forward to meeting was going to be named Bridget Grace Thule. In any event, this adventure quickly became known, at least amongst my family and friends, as Buzz's Bridget Brigade. According to Apple Maps, the trip from Kuntz, Texas to Las Vegas was supposed to be 22 to 23 hours. This was not the case for us. When we got to Amarillo around midnight, the wind was blowing every bit of 30 miles an hour and the temperature had dropped at least 20 degrees. Apple Maps continued to tell us for hours as we drove west on Interstate 40 that we needed to find an alternate route, which we thought was crazy because after all we were on an interstate. We got to Gallup, New Mexico, where we first really hit snow. We talked to a local and they confirmed that they had heard that the interstate was snowed in somewhere between Gallup and Flagstaff. So we did in fact take a detour north and northwest to what Apple Maps was telling us. The detour took us through the Navajo and Hopi Indian Reservation land all the way into southwestern Utah. 31 hours later, after we left southeast Texas, we arrived in Vegas. After a restful night's sleep at a Motel 6, we went to the public storage unit where my Tenere was stored, and we took off on the next phase of our adventure. Billy left his van there at the storage place. We rode down the strip there, Las Vegas, and then headed to Hoover Dam to our southeast. After we left Hoover Dam, we headed back west on Highway 160, or the Pahrump Valley Highway. Turned off there onto Lovell Canyon Road. It was just a beautiful day, as you can see there. The plan all along was for Billy and I, once we hit the West Coast, Highway 1, we were just going to drive north until I got the phone call or the text that my daughter was going into labor. And at that point, we were going to head directly to Travis Air Force Base, make sure we were there when the baby came. Of course, we figured if we made it all the way to Oregon, we were going to turn around and head back to Travis Air Force Base. So here we are, going up Lovell Canyon, Lovell Summit Road, and you can look and you see snow. There's melted snow. We haven't been on this very long, but we just saw some guys in four-wheel drive Jeeps and Toyota 4Runners coming down the hill. I asked them how it was. They said it was so bad they turned around. It's very muddy. So, what are we gonna do?
We're riding adventure bikes, let's go.
In any event, we did, in fact, turn around. Just did not feel like risking it and getting off into a mud pit up there on the top of that mountain. Anyway, we again hit the Pahrump Valley Highway, went through Pahrump, made it into Death Valley. As you can see there, the next gas station was 72 miles, but we knew we were good on gas. Just incredible, rugged beauty. Kind of reminded me of Big Bend in Texas in its remoteness and just the rugged mountains and the landscape.
Death Valley.
Yeah. Anyway, we stopped there to check out the salt. Looks like snow, but the salt went on for miles. We also stopped there in Furnace Creek and got some $7 gas. We ended up spending the night in Tenement Springs. Following morning, we continued west through Death Valley to Highway 395, where we then went south. Finally found our way to 9 Mile Canyon Road and headed up the mountain towards Kennedy Meadows. The plan was to cross the Sierra Nevada mountains and go through the Sequoia National Forest. Now, I had been researching for at least a couple of weeks the various roads in California because I knew that some of them were closed because of snow, seasonal closings, and of course Highway 1 had at least one landslide that had, closed that. I did not know that we were going to hit a road closed sign here. But anyway, no sooner than we entered the Sequoia National Forest, we saw the road closed sign. So we backtracked every bit of 20 to 25 miles all the way back to Highway 395. And then we went south, ended up turning onto Highway 178. Our goal was to go through Lake Isabella. Once we made it to Lake Isabella, we ended up on Kern Canyon Road. Just, I thought, spectacular scenery here. Kern Canyon Road went roughly parallel to Highway 178. At this point, we're headed towards Bakersfield. Made it to Bakersfield, took a shot there of the acres and acres of almond trees. Our plan was to try and make it to San Luis Obispo, but we just ran out of time. We ended up in Taft, California for the night. Left Taft the next morning and headed to San Luis Obispo. We got to San Luis Obispo around noon. Ended up going to Santa Margarita, California, and rode up Black Mountain Road, which was really a neat road. There was a huge weather satellite up at the very top of this mountain. great dinner with Chad and Julie Thule at their house and some of their friends. That was important because that is Bridget's other grandparents. We ended up on this dirt road south of San Luis Obispo and found our way to Pismo Beach, California. We're essentially on or parallel to the Pacific Coast Highway or Highway 1. We ended up spending a night at another fine Motel 6, and the next morning we headed over to Highway 1 and started up north on Highway 1. We did a little detour trip on Old Creek Road, which looped around to Highway 46. At that point there, the fog picture, it was so bad we had to get off the bikes and hop over the guardrail and just wait it out a while. Made it back to Highway 1, and it rained on us the entire time. The only time I pulled a camera out was there at Ragged Point, just to get a picture. We ended up detouring back all the way around to Highway 101 and then headed up north, and it rained on us most of the way. Ended up in King City, California, and here is Arroyo Seco Road. Ended up on Carmel Valley Road. Now, at this point, I'm a little out of sequence of what really happened, but found my way to Napa Valley, saw some turkeys there, just some great scenery. At this point, I'm riding solo. Billy had to go back, but I ended up meeting another rider at the Turtle Rock Bar and Cafe north of Vacaville, and he knew a really neat road that he wanted to take me on, and that is the Berryessa-Knoxville Road near Lake Berryessa, California. Next little bit is us riding down that road. Just an awesome adventure motorcycle road. We did at least 5 water or creek crossings.
She heard me holler, stop. Dr. Juice. My sister Squeeze.
Doing well so far.
Dr. Juice.
I'm gonna say, I take it easy too anyway.
She fed me with the soup spoon and fed me. I was tripping like a baboon on the Serengeti. She said the second session. She said Saturday sounds so sweet. She said she'd fix my ankle, put the rhythm in my feet. Dr. Juice, my sister Squeeze. I'm Dr. Juice, my sister Squeeze.
Once we got off this Knoxville Road and hit pavement, it started raining. This is a picture of the backside of Mount St. Helena. It had gotten down to 44 degrees and it was raining on us the whole time. Put in a little screenshot of the route I rode that day, which took me again through Napa Valley. The next destination on this adventure was the Point Reyes National Seashore. I went through this little town there called Point Reyes Station and had a little snack. Then I headed toward the Point Reyes National Seashore. This is, of course, the Point Reyes National Seashore. And as I got closer to the water and where the lighthouse is located, you can see that fog just got thicker and thicker. I had to park here and walk about 2 miles to see the lighthouse. It was really, really neat. This one I'm headed back on Sir Francis Drake Boulevard, and I'll hit Highway 1 again. Go through a little town there called Inverness, headed towards San Francisco. After I left Point Reyes National Seashore, again headed south through Inverness, Sausalito, and got right across the Golden Gate Bridge. The first half of the bridge was shrouded in fog, and by the time I got to the middle part of the bridge, it was in beautiful blue skies. So I left San Francisco and headed to Travis Air Force Base. Wife flew in from Texas, and we had time to visit with Kyle and Maddie a couple of days before Bridget Graystool made her triumphant arrival at 4:30 in the morning on March 19th. It was an awesome adventure. Got to see Hoover ride through Death Valley, part of the Pacific Coast Highway, Golden Gate, Point Reyes, Napa Valley. But sadly, Buzz's Bridget Brigade had to come to an end. Called Alan Cook. He picked up the Tenere near Travis Air Force Base and hauled it back to Texas, and I flew back with the wife. Thanks for riding along. We'll be back.